Hi everyone. Uh, for today's topic, I just want to do some kind of explanation before the start. So, as actually in this, that's kind of short explanation, mainly focused on authentication authorization, but it should be part of the data security and the user security. Usually we are talking about what is user, and the data security actually is two part. And the data security usually focused on uh, how to guarantee that the user able to make sure the data integrity. I mean, not being been exploded, not being stolen. So it is kind of encryption, decryption topic. Uh, we are not focused on too much, but it is a part of the data security. And then what we talking about user security, actually it is another kind of aspect, security aspect, that uh, how we can prevent in the environment we faced on, and the security issue. Because as you know, we providing application. It is actually running in the application system. I'm sorry, it's operating system. Then there is also uh, we have a while we interact with other system, we have to go through the network system, um, then as well as application itself. So actually, whenever we're talking about system user application security, actually they actually focused on the three aspects. One is the application security, another is the operating system security, another is network security. While you prevent the three of them, while you very well knowledge about the three of them, you will have a more advanced knowledge of the user system user security. So so in terms that we need to talk about in this, basically, especially talk about authentication authorization users. So what is about authentication authorization? That it is kind of two aspect in order to accessing the system, give some kind of proper way to secure root access. So uh, of course, basically, authorization is based on authentication. So nobody can escape the authentication uh, to directly being authorized. So it means it is a authorization actually is after the after the security checking process, uh, after the authentication been successful, been proved. So and then of course we are going to explain what is authentication authorization in term the existing system, in term the operating system perspective. We will be explaining it. Then we also especially we also uh, introduce what's the .NET framework, give us what kind of library, then we will be get advance of them to simplify the development process. So basically, there is a three kind of category. One is it's being called identity, principal, and the permission. Uh, in terms that we also talk about a little bit RBS. RBS, it means role-based access control system. Then finally, we will be introduce extension of the library. Then what kind of implementation, simple implementation? It is being called generic implementation. Then we also a little bit explain about mm, how we can customize if custom implemented those standard. I mean, we also .NET framework provide the interface, give the standard, but how it is possible if you are trying to implement by yourself custom implementation, we also explain them. So let's start from the authentication authorization. Let's say this starting from the let's begin from this picture, and this here is that that's a computer. I mean, which is uh, you will be using this computer, then trying to using some specific function, whatever the function actually is the network application, because as you say, there is a two different kind of isolated server. One is being called authentication, and is the authorization. So what does here is they describe deprecate this authentication. Start from there. They say what is the authentication server doing is they make sure who you are. You are the John. And then if you come back to authorization, they say John is to open this folder. It means whenever you didn't recognize who you are, whenever not recognized yet, you are not possible to even access this resource. Even so, it means first we have to accomplish this authentication by some kind of mechanism. Maybe the authorization system user data account will be stored in the other application server. Whatever they after they recognize this is a legal user, then they will be beginning to access this some specific resource, maybe folder, maybe database, maybe a printer, maybe some kind of permission, then you can able to use some resource. So those are very general perspective of the authentication authority. This is give a very clear view of how and what actually is not what is authentication authorization and the concept itself. So that's authentication authorization. So it's very essential to cover your application system security, and not there is of course there is not include data security. We just focus on application security. So first question is, of course, what's it the what's the .NET framework, Microsoft .NET framework provided to developer some advanced API or library framework to simplify the process? Yes, we has. So basically, there is a three, as I said, there is a three kind of interface and class we can use it. One is the identity. The term is very important. One is identity. What is identity is actually is you can think as this user, as a user. So there is a system security principle. Windows identity, it means they actually using the as this kind of interface to provide such kind of mechanism. This is being called, whenever you listen to identity, just think of this as username. Okay, so then also of course there is already has existing interface that located in the system security principle and namespace. There is a Windows identity class exists. So whenever you want to implement it, you will be used this Windows identity. What generally Windows identity, it's you are able to call one of those three methods. One is get anonymous, get current, get impersonate. So get anonymous, it means there's no username, but still they can say that's an anonymous user. Well, how's get current? It means you already been provided this user, but then you can able to extract this user from the current information, from the current user identity. You can able to identify from the current user thread. Okay, So yeah, let's say that, if let us give an example that, for example, by the way, we just ignore the VB part. We only focus on C sharp. So by the way, Windows Identity provides the class is static, so you can directly get current function. You can call them, then you can able to get this instance of the Windows identity. It means basically you will be get this user information. So who you are, you will be after that. Then after that, you can able to call it this the information that authentication type. So usually, if the Windows, it should be NTLM is anonymous. If there is a give the exactly username, then it shouldn't be is anonymous. It should be false. Otherwise, sometimes you will be it's anonymous true, while if you didn't use the anonymous user, then is authenticated, whether this is it is provide username and password, whatever the token, the case that if one of them is successful, then uh, should be written true. Is guest, is system, username, as well as token. Token is kind of a username and password been integrated together, give a kind of long string. Then we can use it, as a automatic authentication authorization process. Yeah, let's say that, if you let's say the space of code, if you in order to understand what's Windows identity class. So first of all, you will be get this your current user identity. It means then you can able to who you are and what's the token string, then what kind of authentication, then it's those mentioned that the attribute or function you can able to recognize who's a guest or in the system, such like that. Then let's turn to Windows principal class. Of course, as I said, there's a three concept. One is a identity, second the principal, and third is permission. And then this is a Windows principal. It means in the Microsoft and especially .NET framework provided this class to describe the distinguish the user group of user, such that, for example, in your department has many, in your organization has a many department, so such that each of the of course in the department has a different kind of title, then they has a different kind of rule. So it is kind of very close the concept to rule. So as long as you understand what's the rule-based access control, what's the user, what's the rule, what's the resource, that's a kind of very similar concept, and you can able to map this concept and easier to understand. So far, that's the class locate system security principal namespace. Inside namespace has a Windows principal class. So let's start from the example that for example, you Windows identity first for you will be get current to get the Windows identity. Then after that, using the user information to extract your Windows rule. So it means as long as you will be get instance of user identity, you will be get this what kind of user you will be received. That's things you will be understanding. Yes. And then let's say that for example, if the application, for example, the specific application, then using the application, then you will be get your principals if you already have principals, then you can able to set up the principals. Then after that, you will be also from the current principles, you also can rewards process to retrieve your current process, current principles. Mm, yes. So let's in order to understand easily, I mean, simplify this and the process. Let's start from the piece of code. For example, here's Windows identity. You will be get identity instance. Then you will be get this principles. Then as long as you get the principles, then I think after that you will be able to get the. I mean, from the identity you will be get the principles. You know what's the principles? Then you will be know what kind of user you will use to it. Then whenever you get this user principal, it means you can able to distinguish it is what kind of role. It is administrator or power user or user, general user. You can able to distinguish it by the use of such kind of is rule method to distinguish it. Yes, and then also if you're, I mean, this is a, I mean, if you are, I mean, that kind of example, if you're using Windows application system, that is Windows operating system provides such kind of, such kind of user type. But if you are custom type of user you already provided in your IT department, then it's definitely you can use it the way that you can able to use it. For example, that's a domain, and inside the domain you have a domain. It means basically you can distinguish that's such that it's equal to department or organization. Then inside you will be get access one of the different kind of types. For example, accounting in this department has this accounting user type. And then third one, of course, we talked about the third one is permission. So permission is kind of small grade of the security part, application security part. As long as you distinguish your user, your roles, then finally what kind of permission you have to access some specific folder. For example, the folder can be your current user can able to read it or write it or change it. I mean, write it means they can able to update or changes. Then even they has a delayed permission or not. Such things use such kind of level. We can use principal permission to activate it. Yes. So we can use system security permission namespace. We have a principal permission, so we can use this class to use it in the following method. For an authenticated name and roles. As long as you provided those things, you can able to those permission can be provide those things. Principal permission has several methods. Principal permission is, for example, demand or then authenticated. Such things depend on that. You can use able to access your resource, your intended resource. And then after that, we already get this such kind of three aspect. It means you already, if you already familiar with this three aspect, then probably you already know what's the rule-based access control. Usually rule-based access control already used it in the Unix system, some operating system, Linux system. That should be very common knowledge for the computer science engineer. So compare that this role-based access control is not a new term, but it is very, you should know what is a role. It means RBS, it means rule-based system. So rule-based system means based on some kind of rule, you have to, access the resource. So it's a very theoretical part. I mean, very good, term. As long as you application, your development, you have to use such kind of. If you very well understand such concept, then I think it is not hard to understand those method. And then, of course, there is a declared RBS demand must be have three elements in your code. One is the system, your app domain, current domain, set principal policy method to specified principal security. Then, of course, you can try to catch the block the unprivileged attempt. And then also give a principal permission to declare the what kind of resource you can able to access. Yes, let's see the example. For example, here's the C# code try and then administrate only method. For example, then if there is security exception is thrown, it means that you are not belong to administration. For example. Yes, so it is kind of way to you need to understand what is a role-based access system. So there is a different kind of you have a system have a different kind of role based on role. Maybe they have a different kind of security strategy. For example, demanded means you will be you will be checking each time. It's a demand. Then also they has a restrict level as well as only one times checking method. So it's kind of the level is a little bit restrict or a little bit less restrict way to access your system. Then also they sometimes they provided such kind of annotation. For example, here principal permission security action demand, but also they provided username as well as the role. They mentioned it, administrator. So then also second user then has a manager. So those, as long as those permission, then only can be permit to access the administration. So as long as not belong to those one, then this method not been served to current user. Next topic is how you can using the imperative. I mean, there is as I said, there is a two kind of code level security. What is imperative? Another is experative. What is imperative? Is imperative role-based access is just like that previous one, but only difference is they using the the code they using to try and catch. This is being called imperative. So in term instead of they using declaration, they directly using to try cache to using this application. This is only difference. What's if you asking me what's the difference, or if you asking what kind of advantage or disadvantage that previous one can able to more dynamic. I mean, it can able to injection. It means they can able to inject injection. So it means the if it is a little bit intended to more dynamic, you trying to maintain this those kind of permission the outside and outside the resource. So it is best way to injection to them. This should be provided more dynamically. But this one you have to not they didn't provide such kind of dynamics. Instead, you have to write in the try cache way. So you have to write it in the general writing the source code. Then now we also has a as long as you understand such level, sometimes they say, do you have any other option except that they provide the .NET Framework, they provide the Windows, and then can we implement it this custom way? Maybe some special way to implement this authentication authorization is still possible to implement it because they has a three interface we has. For example, in system security principle, they has a identity interface and system security principle namespace, I principal interface, so they can able to implement the user related basically they can able to use two interface to authentication, implement authentication and authorization. So, and then also I principal based class, you also provide the permission based level, we can maintain it. So of course, if they already provide how to create this, the class, right? So basically they can provide implement this method, then they have to override the three things. I mean, they have to implement the three method. One is authentication type, the second is authenticate, third is name, that's username. So let's say the example. For example, let's say the C# part. So they implemented this identity, let's say that authentication part. So they have to, I mean, this is customized identity, and custom identity is kind of initialization of the instance. So whatever they has this method as authenticated name, authentication type, they provide this initialized. But after that, you have to implement is authenticate method, then name, then authentication type. The three of them must be implemented in this class. Yes. The second one is how to customize the principal class. As I said, there's a Windows, I mean, how to create principal class. There's an interface that I principal. So the I principal actually needed to provide the is in all roles, is higher than roles, is lower than roles method enabled to incorrectly group this membership. I mean, that's a good practice. I mean, let's see the example in order to emphasize our understanding. I mean, that's the I principle. Then you needed to say that what you have to, you have to know this is an authentication, then no, it's authorization. So it means they have to be include some kind of authentication information. It's used implement by the I identity. So also roles, yeah. Then a custom principle, they provide the identity and the roles, so it should be already applied it. Then finally, you implement this rule. So it means basically you can able to use this principle. It means, in other words, rules. How to create simple custom user privilege method. I mean, privilege method. There is a simple custom username. Sometimes, if your requirement to simple, but you still want to get advanced from this mechanism, Then there is already a partially implemented, very simple implementations, generic identity and the generic principal. So it's give such kind of a little bit hard coding level, but still able to using this implementation. For example, you direct generic, you have to give the name, and then also second way to provide us the type, so you can able to use this function. Then as well as this another example here is for example IT user administrator, same time you provide a your role and user, so you can able to access this method that is role is return true. And then there is a how to use rule-based access rule-based system demand custom identifier and privilege. I mean, those they give the simple step. Of course, they have to create the identity, they have to create I principles. Then finally, you can get from the current thread to get properly get the property of the I principles, then declares demands. I mean, that's it's not new, just kind of conclusion of the what is they doing. Identity principles never changed, of course. The way that you can implement your custom system. Let's explain by the example. For example, here's that use this. You provide the identity. I mean, give the username. Then also provide us roles. I mean, IT user and administrator, 3 different kind of user. Then principles, of course, they use the generic username 1. Then user my user rule 1. Then you can get this my principal 1. And then then second one is similar things that they provide second principles. Then this is a third current principle 1. Test security. What's test security is how it is. If it is belong to the rules IT, then they will be print out this username. Otherwise, they will be, through the exception. Not yes, actually is not belong to IT department. They will be through the exception. Then they will be, say what is going on. So that's a simple example. Finally, how we can handling the authentication exception stream. Basically, whenever you accessing the remote computer, actually there has a 2 way to you can provide it. The exception. One is a navigation stream, locating system net security. Another is a system net security SSL streams. You know that what SSL is, secure way to secure channel, right? So those two methods can provide such kind of authentication exception and the invalid the credential exception. So it is also fulfilled this gap between the if there's you want to implement this advanced such things more specifically. So that's the end of the lesson. I hope I get a little bit sense. Thank you. If you have any question, leave comment and then